Jovi sound is as instantly recognisable today as it was more than 20 years ago when they first burst onto the music scene. This is a story about family, loyalty and trust, about hard graft, determination and shrewd decision-making. Above all, this is a story about a bunch of guys from New Jersey who just wanted to play music. To fully understand this band, we first need to understand its creator and driving force. John Francis Bon Jovi was born on the 2nd of March 1962, the first son of Carol and John Bon Jovi. He grew up in Saraville, New Jersey, in a comfortable, close-knit Italian household, with his younger brothers Anthony and Matthew.
My dad cuts hair for a living. And it was basically an old-style Italian family.
He went to Saraville War Memorial High School, where he became friends with David Brian Rashbaum. At this time, neither could have known how tightly bound their destinies were. But school didn't hold much interest for John. The only thing he was interested in learning was how to play the guitar. And in typical John fashion, he headed straight for the best teacher in town. That teacher was called Al Perinello. Sadly, Al passed away a couple of years ago, but his cousin, also called Al, remembers this time well.
And one day, as Al told me, this phone rang and this kid by the name of John called him and said that he had heard he's the best guitar teacher in town, and this kid wanted to be a star. And the first meeting came along, and my cousin actually thought he saw something. He actually thought he saw, a potential in this young kid. And he liked him. He liked him a great deal. So he sort of took him under his wing. The way Al referred it to me is that he sort of knew that this kid, he called him a little runt, by the way. He said, this little runt wouldn't leave me alone, but he just had a tremendous amount of talent that was very visible to him right from the very inception.
So, from this early age, was it obvious what John would become?
So many times I hear the same story over and over again. They knew. They absolutely 100% knew that, since they can remember, that it was going to happen. It was just a matter of, going through the process and convincing other people that this emerging star would ultimately come out.
So, even as a teenager, it was clear that John would be a star. He knew this as much as everyone around him. But John was a Jersey boy, so this couldn't go to his head. The people surrounding him just wouldn't let it.
I think New Jersey, there's a bond that people have. There's a unity, there's a loyalty, there's an understanding that family comes first and your friends come first. You don't sell out, it's no bullshit. You're not impressed by yourself or anything you've done. And even the Jersey music scene back then, if your amp broke, somebody would lend you one. If your guitar got stolen, somebody'd give you one. It was very one for all for one. It wasn't competition. It was whoever wins next is going to help everybody else. So everybody was very, very supportive. It wasn't a competitive community at all.
The way to look at it really is that we're all rock and roll bands, and so, we're basically supposed to be on the same side, It shouldn't be a competitive thing, I know that with our support acts, we make sure that we give them as much as we possibly can.
This state was also the birthplace of other music greats, including Bruce Springsteen and, of course, the legendary Frank Sinatra.
Bruce made it okay to be from Jersey. John made it cool to be from Jersey.
The grounding influence of New Jersey still keeps John sane. Today, he and his family live in Red Bank, just a short distance from where he grew up. John graduated from high school and immediately formed a band. One of his bandmates was his old friend, David Brian Rashbaum.
John Bon Jovi had a band called the Atlantic City Expressway when he was younger. And it was kind of like Bruce Springsteen type of music. They were pretty good though.
Atlantic City Expressway only played cover songs. While it gave John the experience he was craving in live shows and an opportunity to sing and perform, what he really wanted was to play his own music. Because he was already immersed in the local music scene through his cover band, he soon found himself as lead vocalist in a rock band playing original music.
I had a band called The Rest. It was managed by a guy named Jim Giantonio, who ran a club called the Fast Lane in Asbury. He also began managing John when John was in a band called Atlantic City Expressway. And he said, you gotta come down and see him, you gotta come down and see him, you gotta come down and see him. And when I went down to see him, I went, whoa, because it was just amazing. We started hanging out together, and John wanted to do demos, original songs. He asked me if I'd help him do the demos. We started writing songs together. And the idea at that point was my band was going to record in the studio with him for his demos. And then as my band was practicing the songs, John came to one of our shows, came on stage and played with us, and it just worked. And from that point on, he said, all right, you're the singer.
So John had taken the first steps down the road to being a rock star. But life was far from glamorous.
Very fun times and very difficult times, too. There was no money, zero, nothing, nada. The only advantage is because our managers own the Fast Lane, we get to rehearse there for free, which was great, in the basement with rats that would literally run across the equipment. And there was no heat, and there was like literally rats, not mice, rats. And we get to practice there, but our purpose in life, or what we wanted to do, was headline the Fast Lane. So it was like, yeah, you know, it was exciting.
The famous Fast Lane. Somebody gave him a gift of the hand stamp with the Fast Lane on it and a ticket. I'd like that. It's the Asbury Lanes. John talks about how when they used to play here and they didn't have much money, they would go over there and get some grilled cheese sandwiches for like $1, and that would be dinner.
In the late 70s and early 80s, Asbury Park was the epicentre of all that was cutting edge in rock music. Today, Asbury Park looks like a war zone. It's deserted and dilapidated. But amazingly, the music venues still rock. Bon Jovi even kicked off their Crush tour at the Convention Hall here. The Fast Lane was one of the preeminent venues in Asbury Park, with a stage that every aspiring rock star wanted to conquer. To have any involvement with the Fast Lane was enough to make a wannabe feel he was on his way. But there was still a long way to go.
Then we started to play outside of town a lot. New York, horrendous, that was horrible. One show we played in upstate New York, took us hours to get there. We were really excited because it was a huge club, but it was an upstairs club and a downstairs club. And at that time, disco was kind of popular. So when we got to play, nobody from upstairs came downstairs at all. So what was worse is you can hear thousands of people above you, and there was nobody downstairs. But that summer in 1980 was really magical. There was great artists all over. Southside Johnny was extraordinarily helpful to us. All of Springsteen's band was helpful to us. And we were purportedly the next big thing because it went Springsteen, Southside Johnny, then it was supposed to be us. But we couldn't get a deal. I remember once we gave a demo to a label which shall be nameless to a vice president who shall be nameless. And she jumped up and down, said, it's the greatest thing I've ever heard in my life, and like lost her